All right. It just says reactions. I think we're good.
I think we're recording.
Okay. Hi, guys. Hi, everyone. My name is Miko Price, and I am a counselor at Deer Valley High School. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce our presenters today on behalf of the Deer Valley Unified School District. Meagan Foxx, she's the gal on the left, is the Chief Executive Officer of Transitions Counseling and Consulting and is a licensed professional counselor, a certified school guidance counselor, a licensed substance abuse counselor, and holds certifications in EMDR. Meagan has extensive training in the treatment of trauma, codependency, and addictions. She has over 16 years of experience working with adolescents and young adults and also specializes in working with first responders and their families. Jessica, the gal on the right, is a licensed professional counselor and holds a bachelor's degree in family and consumer sciences education and a master's degree in professional counseling from Grand Canyon University. She has 11 years of experience in professional counseling or in education, both as a classroom teacher in child and human development and career exploration, and as a school counselor in a large public school. Jessica has worked as an adolescent therapist in an intensive outpatient therapy program and as clinical director of Transitions Counseling and Consulting. Jessica is a writer and presenter focusing on topics such as mental health, personal development, and self-care. Jessica is very passionate about her work with adolescents and their families. Both Meagan Foxx and Jessica Brubaker were among our ranks as school counselors in the Deer Valley Unified School District. I know them both, and I am thrilled to have them present today. Without further ado, please welcome Meagan and Jessica from Transitions Counseling and Consulting.
Thank you so much, Miko. Thank you for that warm introduction. We always love to partner with Deer Valley. I'm also a parent of 2 Deer Valley students on the middle school and high school level as well. And so, during this presentation, we will be talking with you all from many different perspectives, one of which is, of course, as counselors, but also as human beings going through a lot of the same things that I'm sure that you guys are experiencing as well during these times, and also as a parent. So you'll hear that flavor, throughout our presentation as well, just to make it more relatable to you all. So just a couple of things, just for the starters, in terms of housekeeping. So if you guys could, just because we have a number of people on screen, make sure to mute your microphones. That will just help us to really limit any background noise. Oops, I think someone just went off mute. Let's see. And I may, if I see it on the screen that there's not a mute, I might call you out. I'm not trying to embarrass you, but it'll save other people from hearing some weirdness. So I'm just watching the screen to make sure everybody is going to be muted. And then we'll keep on going. And some things happen. So, we're using technology. So you might find that in our presentation, a slide moves a little bit slow, somebody gets off mute and we have to pause. So I just ask you to bear with us, through these times. The other thing is we will be recording this presentation, and I believe, and Miko can fill us in on where that will be located, but I know you will be able to access it, I think, through the Deer Valley website, possibly linked with YouTube. So we'll give you that information later. If there's anything that you miss or you want to go back and review something, you can do that there. The other thing, because we are all mute, or you guys will be muted during the time that we're doing the presentation, there is a chat feature. Some of you have probably used this, others, it's pretty easy to find on the Zoom, where you can go ahead and put a question or comment in that chat area. And although we won't see it while we're using our PowerPoint, when we are done with our hour-long presentation, where we're about an hour, where we're talking with you, the last 30 minutes will be question and answer, and we will be going back to that chat. You can also, hopefully at that time, we're going to open it up so people can ask questions in real live time as well. So don't feel pressured to use that, but that's an option for you, just so you don't forget. If you're anything like me, it's out of sight, out of mind. So I think that's it for housekeeping. So we will go ahead and get started. And I am going to start by sharing the screen.
Hey, perfect timing.
And just move.
Hey, Jeff, you want to make me co-host? I can help with muting people.
Oh yeah, I do want to make you
Okay, how do we do
co-host.
that?
You have to go back
Do I
to
stop sharing first?
go do the little dot up there.
Okay.
There you go. And
Make host. Awesome.
thanks,
Okay.
Miko.
It
You're
says
the
change
best.
the host.
That's okay.
Is that okay?
That's okay.
We're still figuring it out, guys.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
It does. Okay. And Miko, I'll ask you just to verify that you can see what I am seeing.
The title screen, anxiety.
Beautiful. Okay, wonderful. Then we will go ahead with that and get started. So tonight, we are hoping to offer some insight about the world we are currently living in and how these circumstances are impacting all of us. We will be focusing on the topic of anxiety, and we will be digging into how it's experienced in the body, tips and strategies for coping with and reducing anxiety symptoms, as well as how to recognize when this is occurring in your children and as a family system, and how to help them and you with coping. We will also be discussing when to seek additional help and talking about accessing resources for additional help. As I mentioned during this presentation, Jessica and I will be sharing from different perspectives and hope to really give you a breadth of information that is relatable and tools that you guys can use starting today, you know, to really help cope with anxiety and help your children with that as well. The first thing that I would love for all of you to hear is that you are not alone. You are not alone. In 2019, there was quite a bit of talk about dangers of our increased utilization and dependence on technology. We actually did a few presentations for Deer Valley about just us living in this world where we're so connected that we're disconnected. I talked to many parent groups about that and the dependence on the cell phone and Facebook and email and, you know, don't forget Instagram or Snapchat. All of these things back in 2019 that we were really focusing on, and as a culture in terms of counselors, we were worried about. We're really nervous about this epidemic, we sometimes would call it, because we're becoming more and more disconnected. So 2019 is going on with all of this. We're being present in a one-to-one conversation without checking your phone, your email, your Apple Watch. As I'm looking at Jessica, you can't see me. It's kind of funny because she wears one.
And I totally just looked at it.
She did. And when we're talking, sometimes she'll like look at her watch and I know she's not looking at the time. I'm like, are you here with me? So no, I love her to death. But it's an example. Being present really in that one-on-one time without checking on those things was really ceasing to exist as it was back in 2019. And our relationships were starting to lack in genuine, intimate communication and connection. Our children have been a prime example of this. I don't know if you all have a rule like I do at my house about no technology at the table. That's recent for me. I also have to follow that rule. And my kids for sure call me on that as well. So we were already starting to struggle with feeling connected. And then COVID hit. And our world really turned upside down. Now, you know, many of us are finding ourselves working from home. And, you know, I mean, that's what you always wanted, right? Like, how awesome to be in pajamas. You know, I have like this coat that I put over my shirt sometimes, like just like this jean jacket to sort of pretend that I, you know, got dressed during the day. And then I look down at, you know, my socks and my yoga pants and I'm like, yes, I'm here, I'm present. So how awesome, you know, to be able to do that. How awesome to not deal with the hour-long commute to and from work. Yeah, I mean, that's great. For about a minute, you know, until we start to really miss that routine that we had that created that sense of safety and security, the water cooler conversations at work, the sense of belonging that we got from being in our offices with other humans. As human beings, we are social creatures. We need people. We base our perception of ourselves and the world around us through our interactions with one another. Without interaction, we start to experience symptoms of depression and anxiety, and we start to make up and believe that we are actually alone. In addition to the forced isolation, our outlets for stress became off limits. And I want to mention, just because I think that this is a little bit unique for us in Arizona, when our numbers started really climbing and things shut down, it was the start of summer. And I don't know about you guys, I spend half my time between Virginia and Arizona. And it's really interesting to me because Arizona, what happens is like, it's opposite. So in the summertime, we shut our garages. Like we literally will drive up to our garage, open the door, drive into the garage, shut the garage, and go right in the door. Usually, I mean, we have to get away from the heat, right? So we're already isolating. And then when it starts to get cool, all of a sudden people are like, hey, you know, and they're coming out of their houses and saying hi and, you know, that kind of a thing. But we were going through all that normal shift to summer when COVID hit. And so the normal things that we would do, like go to the mall or go to the movies or go to the gym, like all of these places where we run from our air-conditioned car to our air-conditioned place, they weren't available anymore, you know? And so people started really, including myself, climbing the walls because we didn't have that ability to have our outlets anymore. I have an example. My family got so stir crazy and it was, you know, again, summertime, we decided, hey, you know, we're just going to drive to Lake Pleasant. And we're not boaters, we don't, you know, whatever, but we're just gonna go to Lake Pleasant. That's something we can do. It's something that's open. So we go, we jump in our car, we're driving to Lake Pleasant, and then we hit this major like traffic, you know, going there because I think everybody else had the same idea, like the only water in the valley, let's go, right? But then we notice like, oh, wow, people are turning around. What is going on? And so we hang out a little bit longer and we see this sign, Lake Pleasant is closed. It has reached capacity. The lake was full because you know, everybody was trying to get there. Soon we noticed that there was a lot of unhappy people, horns blowing, tires screeching, road rage aplenty. We really were like animals in a cage. So why am I talking about this? I think it's important for us to understand and give ourselves as parents and as humans a little bit of grace and compassion for what we've been going through. You know, and I have had thoughts myself of like, wow, who am I right now? You know, why am I so short with my kids? Why, you know, do I feel sad when things are going pretty well in life? You know, what is this about? And so we're going to be really delving into that and talking about, you know, some ways to cope with the things that are going on right now. So really looking at that new normal. Thank you, COVID, for further straining a culture already being dangerously disconnected, for creating a sense of being alone and stealing our routines, for then taking away any outlet we used to manage stress and increase happiness. And then, when it looked like it wasn't going to get any worse, schools closed. Schools closed. And so for us in Deer Valley, I don't know if it's okay for me to say that, but I'm going to say this. I do feel lucky because I think that we have a district that has really helped to partner with parents. That's just my experience. And it might not be everybody else's, but I think that we have all as parents also, no matter what district we are in, have really had a challenge in trying to deal with the being a teacher and a parent and all of those things at the same time. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, this is kind of what my brain looked like, if y'all can relate. Where did my routine go? What's going to happen? Email from school saying Johnny didn't attend math today? Did Johnny even have math today? Wait, he's base schedule, right? Or is that Sam's schedule? Maybe Johnny's A. How do you find the circumference again? Canvas won't come up and Sam is down again? How am I supposed to host that conference call when Sam is on lunch? And oh no, are we out of toilet paper? So I'm being funny because at this point, I think that that's all we can do about this situation in some ways is laugh, you know? But that's really what life started to look like. So if you are a person, whether you've experienced anxiety before or not, but you're noticing that you're experiencing it for the first time or it's really heightened, that's why. You know, you are not alone with this, and there are so many reasons and things that are contributing to that overall anxiety, which Jessica is going to talk about in just a couple of minutes. So many of us are struggling with taking care of ourselves during these times, and at the same time, while running on empty, we're trying to make sure our children are okay. And that can be a challenge.
So the question becomes, how can I help my kid if I feel like a mess myself? And I think when we talk about the idea of self-care, Megan's going to touch on this a little bit more as it relates to families. But when we think about the idea of self-care, what we're really telling you to do is to nurture the relationship that you have with yourself. And that is true whether I'm talking to an adult or an adolescent. And it's about doing the things for yourself that you're supposed to do for your kid. You're supposed to affirm them, tell them that they're good enough. You're supposed to nurture them and meet their needs, and you're supposed to hold boundaries so that they can be safe and protected in this world. Because right now, as Megan said, anxiety is running rampant. And so when we were asked to do this presentation, that was really like, hey, can you please put a pretty big focus on anxiety, because people are dealing with it either for the first time ever, or they've always experienced it and it's really exacerbated at this moment. So they were like, can you just put a little bit of focus on anxiety? So I want to share a little bit about what anxiety actually is, because I think that oftentimes the word anxiety gets like thrown around a little bit. The word anxiety gets, synonymous with fear or synonymous with nervousness. And there's a little bit of a difference. So the definition of anxiety from like official Webster's Dictionary.com that I copy pasted this from is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something to do with an uncertain outcome, which absolutely fits what's happening right now, because nobody has any idea what's going on or what's going to happen. When I talk about anxiety with my clients in a session, I phrase it like this. Anxiety is a question. It's a question. Fear is a statement. That's how it's different. With anxiety, the question is, am I safe? With fear, the statement is, I'm not safe. So there's a little nuance of a difference. But anxiety is a primitive emotion. We are 100% born with the ability to feel it. And it dates back to even like, the cave people. And when we're talking about cave people, their anxiety gets triggered by like, did you hear that? Was that a bear? Do I need to protect my family, right? In 2020, our anxiety is triggered by COVID numbers. Our anxiety is triggered by the fact that Zoom is down. Our anxiety is triggered by there's no toilet paper. Our anxiety is triggered by, oh my gosh, I might have to quarantine and the only ramen my kid will eat is chicken, but shrimp is the one that's left. Or I had to buy a soy sauce one. I was not a fan. I do not recommend that one. But the things that are triggering this feeling of am I safe are very different in 2020 than when we were cave people. But you are reacting the same way. And the brain does not have the ability to tell the difference between a physical threat, like, is that a bear? And an emotional threat, like, am I going to run out of toilet paper, right? Or is my Zoom going to work? Is Canvas going to come up? Am I going to be safe? Is grandma going to be okay? All of those things. And so your body is reacting the exact same way. And I say that because anxiety is really a physical body sensation. When we talk about like, I feel anxious, I don't know if this is true for all of you, but I often go, I feel anxious and I touch my heart, or I feel anxious and I touch my stomach, because I'm feeling it in my body. It affects the body in a lot of different ways. Every human is a little bit different. But essentially what's happening is anxiety is triggering your fight or flight response. You have an incident or a trigger or a moment, or you watch the news, or somebody says something, or you have a thought, and your brain goes, am I safe? Do I need to go into fight or flight so that I can protect myself? And it releases a flood of chemicals, which include adrenaline and cortisol, which tell your body it's time to fight or flight, get ready. And it turns off all of your non-essential functions. Usually you're not that hungry when you're anxious because your body is not listening to your hunger cues. Often you have a sensation of like needing to use the restroom because your body's trying to empty yourself so that you can run away from the threat. All other body sensations like increased pulse, increased heart rate, increased temperature, increased rate of breath, headaches, muscle tension, stomach ache, nausea, this overall feeling of unsettled or unrest, that's all happening because your brain is telling your body we got to get ready. There's a bear coming. Right now it's metaphorical, but there's a bear coming and we need to protect ourselves. So we need to be ready to fight. We need to be ready to flight. We need to be ready to potentially freeze. And so when your brain tells your body that, what actually happens is that you start to pump blood into different parts of your body, and it creates this overall body sensation. So I think that the easiest way that I have to kind of almost demonstrate anxiety in this particular format, I'm going to pull up the whiteboard. So we're going to stop sharing for a quick second so that we can pull up the whiteboard. Oh, did we clear it?
What did I do?
Share screen.
Okay, there we go.
And then whiteboard.
Beautiful.
Okay, so
you can actually do it.
oh, I don't think I can. So here's the reality that we're working with here. Your girl Jessica is not an artist. And also I'm on a touch screen using my pointer finger. So this is not going to be all that pretty. However, I think that it is a really interesting visual representation, because what happens with anxiety is that we feel it in 4 ways. And I'm talking a lot about the first one, body. This is that increased pulse, increased heart rate, increased breath, increased temperature. Our palms get sweaty. Sometimes people will like hyperventilate or breathe really heavy or whatever. We also experience it in our mind. This is where we ask ourselves that question. That question, am I safe? Am I safe? Do I need to protect myself? Is it going to be okay? Do I have a fever? Do I not have a fever? Should I take my temperature? Should I go get a test? Is that allergies or is that actually a symptom, right? Am I safe? And then we all have behaviors. This piece also looks different for different humans, but a lot of times that looks like ruminating those thoughts. Sometimes that looks like when we snap at somebody because we're really short. Sometimes that looks like when we wring our hands together. Sometimes that looks like pacing. Sometimes that looks like tapping or bouncing our leg. We all have behaviors. And then we experience it in our words. And when I say that, what I mean is we name it something. So what we're talking about right now, we're calling anxiety. And I'm going to use an example for myself because this is a presentation and that seems to be the easiest. So I'm going to tell you, I don't love driving in the rain. It creates a lot of anxiety for me. And so that's the word, anxiety. So we're going to talk about what happens in my body when I notice that it's raining and I know that I'm going to have to drive home because I have to get home and I don't love it. My heart starts to race. I get really, really warm. I breathe really heavy. And in my mind, I'm thinking, am I going to be safe? Am I going to get in a car accident? Is it going to be raining so hard on the 51 that I can't see the lines on the road? Am I going to hit a curb, flip 7 times, die in a fiery crash, and my mom's going to learn about it on the news? It's some version of am I safe? And then my behavior happens, right? I grip the steering wheel if I'm already driving. I wring my hands. I pace back and forth. My eyes dart back and forth because I'm trying to make sure that I see everything because I'm anxious. Now I want you to notice that I don't mention, besides at the beginning, the fact that I'm triggered by the rain in that little cycle there, because that hangs out on the outside because it's already happened and because I have literally zero control over the fact that it's raining. Trust me, if I could figure out a way to not make it rain when I had to drive, I would 100% do that. But I can't. I have no control over it and I have to get home, or I guess I have to get to work, whatever. So you might notice that I put these little arrows that are so lovely around my little cycle, right? And that's because all of these things impact each other. When I feel anxious, it impacts my body. When my body feels that way, my mind starts going. When my mind is wondering if I'm gonna die in a fiery crash, I start having my behaviors because I'm anxious, and my body gets worse, and my thoughts get worse, and my behaviors get worse, and it spins and spins and spins and spins and spins until it feels so out of control. And for me, that's what a panic attack feels like. But here's the interesting thing, and one of the reasons why I use this particular example, if you can affect change in just one of these 4 areas, you can shift the whole cycle. Because I might not have control over the rain. I might not have control over the weather, but I certainly have control over whether or not I breathe. I do have control over my thoughts, although it doesn't always feel that way. I have control over my behaviors, and I have control over my words and the way that I talk to myself. So I'm going to stop sharing my little whiteboard and go back to our PowerPoint. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah, you want next one?
Yes, I do. Okay, so what this slide is a list of tangible coping skills that will work for you and for your kids. And I'm gonna go through each one and just talk a little bit about each one. And then Megan's gonna share a little bit about kind of like what that looks like within your family. So the first one is mindfulness. Mindfulness is another one of those words that gets a lot of shine in today's society, and people talk about it in a lot of different ways, and often the word gets not confused, but it sort of feels synonymous with meditation, but that's not necessarily what it is. Anxiety is really about the future. You're thinking about what could happen, what might happen. Depression, on the other hand, is often about the past. But the reality of both of those things is that they're not usually about what is actually happening in the moment. And so practicing mindfulness is one of the ways that you can ground yourself to the now. And because you're all on this call, I'm going to have you practice it a little bit wherever you are. I know people are in different spots. You didn't think there was going to be work today, but there is.
Play along, there might be a test.
I used to be a teacher, so I have to have class participation. So wherever you're at, if you're sitting in your car, if you're sitting on your couch, if you're sitting at your table, your office, whatever, I just want you to put both your feet on the floor. And the magic word here is notice. I just want you to sit for a moment and notice. What does the floor feel like under your feet? What do your feet feel like? Do you notice that maybe you put more pressure on your right foot than your left foot? Do you notice that your feet are kind of sweaty? What do your calves feel like? Are your legs bent? Are you sitting kindergarten style or crisscross applesauce? What do you notice about the way that your seat feels? Is it soft, hard? What do you notice about your back? I bet most of you just sat up a little bit straighter because most of the time we notice that our posture is less than ideal. Are you leaning back in your chair? Are you sitting forward? This isn't about judgment. It's just about what do I notice? Where are your hands? Are they sitting in your lap? Are they sitting next to you? Are they on a table in front of you? Take a look around your space. Notice what you see. Might be a chair. I see a plant. We're in my office, so I have a whiteboard. There's a couch. Just notice what you see. It's not about, I really need new drapes because I don't like those ones. It's just about, I see drapes, they're blue. Notice what you hear. Are there people's voices in the hall? You might notice that you hear my voice. You might notice that your kids are fighting in the other room. Just notice. They'll work it out. Notice what you smell. Is that dinner that you put in the crock pot almost ready? Notice what you taste. Do you have a mint in your mouth? Do you not have a mint in your mouth? Just notice. Take a moment and scan from the top of your head all the way down to the tips of your toes. Be in this moment. You have nowhere else to be and nothing more important than you. Take some breaths, and you can return. So mindfulness, like I said, anxiety is about the future and depression is about the past. Mindfulness is just about the now. You could be in the middle of doing the dishes and do that. Notice how your feet feel. Notice how your back feels. Notice how the soap smells. Notice how the hot water feels on your hand. The magic word is just to notice, because if you can notice what's actually happening in the here and now, what's happening is that you're telling your brain, you know, that brain that's asking the question, am I safe? Of course I'm safe. This soap smells like lavender. If I wasn't safe, I wouldn't be able to smell this delicious lavender soap, right? The second one on the list is breath work. So I am an adolescent therapist, so I work with a lot of 16-year-olds, and I think that breath work is one of the things that most therapists recommend. And if you're talking to a 16-year-old, they go like this, it doesn't work. And I'm like, all right, I feel you. Let's maybe give that another try. So here's the deal with breath work. When you are feeling anxious, like I said before, your body is in that fight or flight response, right? And so all of the parts of your central nervous system are activated. And if you are a person that experiences anxiety, you'll connect with this. I feel like when I'm really anxious, my body is like buzzing, right? And so when you do breath work, that deep rhythmic breathing, whether that's I'm going to take 5 deep breaths, or I'm going to take 10 deep breaths, or I'm going to take as many deep breaths as it takes until I feel better, what happens is that your body starts to regulate. All of that blood that I mentioned that goes to your extremities when your brain tells your body that it's time to fight or flight, it goes back to where it belongs, because the active rhythmic breathing activates the vagus nerve in your brain, which is what turns on your parasympathetic nervous system and literally tells your body to calm down. I love breath work. It is my number one go-to in terms of coping skills when I am talking about anxiety specifically. And the number one reason for that is that you always have access to your breath. I think that's true for mindfulness as well. But one of the things that Meagan mentioned earlier when she was talking about the new normal is all of a sudden we found that this stuff that we used, like we don't have access to. When I couldn't get a pedicure for 6 weeks, I was like devastated, right? And not that that was the only thing I was worried about, but this stuff that we usually do to take care of ourselves, we didn't have access to it. And on top of the fact that we didn't have access to it, we were under more stress than we've really ever been under before. And so you always have access to your breath. It doesn't matter where you are. You could be at school, you could be at work, you could be in the car, you could be at the park, you could be getting a pedicure. You always have access to do that rhythmic breathing. My favorite breath work, I'm just going to share with you, is called box breathing. I sometimes get lost in the like, how many deep breaths did I just do? Was that 9? Was that 10? I don't know where I'm at. And then like, it doesn't actually help my anxiety because I start to get stressed that I haven't done enough breaths. So I like to do, it's called box breathing. It's really short, where you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and then you kind of pause for 4 seconds and don't do anything. And I just do sets of 4. And then I go, do I feel better? And if the answer is no, I do 4 more. Do I feel better? If the answer is no, I do 4 more. And I keep doing sets of 4 until I feel better. And I kind of even will like imagine that box, and that's helpful for me to not get lost. The third one on the list is gentle movement. When we say that, we're really referring to like stretching, yoga, walking. There is a lot of research that talks about, you know, exercise being good for you, but really that gentle movement is about calming down your body. And when you do things like that, you will notice that the breath work kind of like mixes in, and it has a similar experience of turning on that vagus nerve and activating the parasympathetic nervous system to calm your body down. So stretching, yoga, walking, a little bit of endorphins are going to help mask pain, and then also your body actually calms down, which is so important with the body sensations that happen with anxiety. The fourth one on the list is journaling. This is another thing that I think pretty much every therapist in the world tells people to do. Like, oh, have you tried journaling? You should write about your feelings. It'll make you feel better. But it's because it's true. Sorry about it. The act of actually putting pencil to paper and having to identify what your thoughts are and then use the symbols that letters are to create a word, it activates both sides of your brain, forcing you to process that emotion a lot more deeply. And that's a lot of times that's half our problem, is that we're letting these thoughts like spin in our head without processing them out. Maybe it's because we don't have anybody to talk to because we're isolated. Maybe it's because we don't think, anybody's going to understand what it is that we're going through. Whatever the reason is, it just gets kind of like metaphorically stuck in our mind. And the act of actually putting pen to paper is one of the most healing things that you can do. The next one is drawing. I put that in the same camp as journaling. Not everybody is super artistic by any means. So not everybody loves drawing, but I think that most of us can identify with just like some doodles. I used to draw a little Snoopy out of a 25. If anybody did that, I also used to really love like a bundle of balloons. Those were my doodles. But that kind of stuff just, it helps like give you something to do with your hands, which shifts the attention away from that am I safe question. Doing something that creates the opposite emotion. So the example that I gave was watching a funny show or video. This world right now is anxiety provoking. All the things that we've mentioned, Zoom, toilet paper, ramen, all of that, school being closed, I can't get on campus, I don't know what to do, my teacher's not emailing me back, all of those things. In addition to the fact that the news is running 24/7 telling us the count and how unsafe it is, and everything is turned upside down. When we engage in all of that, anxiety is the natural emotion to feel. So intentionally doing something that's going to create that opposite emotion. Like after I watch the news, I like to turn on a couple episodes of Friends because I know that's going to make me laugh every time. Ross is my favorite. Phoebe's a close second. But it's important to pay attention to doing the opposite, right? When we are having intense emotions, oftentimes we automatically turn to like commiserating. If I'm feeling anxious, I watch a scary movie. If I'm feeling sad, I listen to a sad song, or I watch like a romantic comedy that's going to make me cry, right? And so doing something that creates the opposite emotion that you're feeling, again, shifts your brain. It almost tricks it from that am I safe question. And then the last thing on this list is music. Making it, listening to it, singing to it, dancing to it, it's all good. Music is super healing, and I'm going to give you a really fun fact tonight. When you sing out loud, and I'm talking like singing out loud, whether you have a nice voice or not, your vocal cords vibrate at a different rate than when you're speaking, and it actually creates dopamine in your brain. Singing out loud is a literal mood elevator. So one of the best things that you can do for yourself is make a playlist of those songs that you cannot help but sing along to. The ones that get stuck in your head. I know that's not anybody's favorite in this moment, but I'm talking like Call Me Maybe. Who doesn't sing along to that? I don't know if there's any 90s kids in the crowd today, but This Is How We Do It by Michael Jordan. I can't not sing it, right? So make yourself a playlist of songs that you're going to sing along to. If you're into Christmas music, this is a great time to do it. And sing. It will literally change your mood. Also, dancing creates endorphins, so there's that.
I'm suddenly wanting to listen to Vanilla Ice. Thank you, Jessica.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you. So that was a great overview of many techniques that we can use for ourselves and also teach our kids and even do with our kids as a family. We're going to talk a little bit more about some practical activities and things that we can do within our family system and also just as parents to help us and our kids at the same time. One of the things I want to mention that Jessica, talked about with anxiety, I want to talk about a byproduct of anxiety. When we are actually not in the prefrontal cortex of our brain, Okay, that's like where logic and reasoning and, you know, the ability to respond instead of react, all of those things live in that part of our brain. When we feel like we are probably going to be or being chased by the bear, we go into the back of our brain, which is called the amygdala, and that's where the fight, flight, and freeze happens, okay? When that happens and we have those high levels of stress and that cortisol and the adrenaline running through our bodies, we are not necessarily the best of communicators, okay? And so if we've got all this stress going on and we told Johnny that he better do his chores when he gets home, and that chore, one of those chores is to get the dishes done, and I know that I only have X amount of time between getting home and getting kids to bed and showers and cleaning and food prep and all of this, and I'm really counting on Johnny to do that one chore, and I come home and he forgot to do the dishes, okay? Or maybe there's another reason he didn't do the dishes, but I'm gonna go from 0 to 10 in like 2.4 seconds or less if I'm in that emotional space of being stressed. And I think this is something that I'm seeing a lot. I've experienced it as a parent myself, that we tend to have a shorter fuse when we have a lot of anxiety going on a daily basis. And that's because human beings really don't have the capacity to run on fumes, which is what a lot of us have sort of come to. So, you know, you might have found yourself being short with your spouse or your coworkers or your friends or family or your kids. And maybe little Johnny gets yelled at before he says, Mom, you forgot to get more dish soap. That's why I didn't do the dishes. And you're like, oh, geez, I'm so sorry, Johnny. So I just wanted to mention that is an effect, sort of like a byproduct of living with ongoing stress. And so that's something, if you've noticed in your relationships, that there's a little bit more conflict, you know, or that kind of thing coming up, that's probably a part of that. And you may want to ask yourself, what am I doing to take care of myself, you know, and where is my stress level? Where is my partner's stress level? Where is my kid's stress level? And that helps us to develop a little bit more compassion for one another, you know, during these times. So going into a few things around how to use some practical skills for you and your kids. This also builds off of what we were just talking about, because there's that conflict and fight or flight and, you know, all of these things. We really want to work on bringing connection back into our family system. And that's the key word. How can I connect? How can we connect with one another? And Jessica shared some really great things about, you know, being mindful and being present, you know, on what you're doing when you're doing it. One of the things that I want to talk about is creating a new routine. Just got hot in here. I think the heat just turned on in our office. So like, whew, it's not anxiety. Anyway, sidebar. So creating a new routine. So one of the things just to kind of think about, you know, and maybe you can take a moment and pause and think about back in like January, February, what your routine looked like. I know personally, even though things have opened back up to some extent, my routine still looks very different than it did in January or February of this year. And what happened, because we have, generally speaking, the routine of getting up in the morning, get the kids ready for school, you know, getting breakfast situated, packing lunches, getting in your car, maybe driving your kids to school or the bus stop, or maybe they walk, getting yourself through your commute, getting to the office, checking in, having lunch at a certain time where maybe you pay your bills, leaving the office at 5, you know, whatever, getting home, doing dinner, stopping at the grocery store on your way home instead of ordering it, you know, through a home delivery service. You had a routine, okay? Most of us. And because we had a pretty solid routine, a lot of times we were able to let like the things on the fringes sort of go. You know, maybe we could relax into that routine, because routines give us a feeling of safety and security. That's why we talk about with kids so much, especially younger ones. But by the way, this really does expand through the lifespan. We talk about creating routines as being incredibly important for sleep and happiness and, you know, productivity and all of those things, because they do make us feel safe and they give us that ability to relax, you know, into life. Not having a routine and feeling like things are chaotic actually really increases anxiety. So one thing that I would encourage you all to do for yourselves and also for your families is creating a new routine. You know, maybe breakfast and dinner is always at the same time, the best that you can. Maybe there's, some certain things that you do. Like my kids and I, this is probably the best thing that I ended up doing around the school stuff, because even though they're back in school now, still everything's on Canvas, and it's, everybody's getting used to it, and it's a little challenging. So we have time when they come home from school where we, the three of us, me and my boys, we sit around our little bar in the living room. I finish emails and things like that since I'm working from home, and it's 3 o'clock, and now my kids are home, but I still have 2 hours in my workday. And my boys come and they get their, Chromebooks out and they work on their homework. And so we actually do the homework stuff together. And at 5 o'clock, we are done. Regardless of what's going on, we are done. It is time to shift into some dinner, some family time. If there's things left over afterwards, like homework or geometry, yes, I've been suffering through that. I think it's in my nightmares. I was never good at math. I'm a counselor, not a math teacher. I have some feelings about that. But we'll cycle back to that afterwards. And that has made a world of difference for me and for our family. So I'd really encourage you guys to create a new routine and stick to it. It doesn't have to be, a play-by-play, but just put a few things in there of what to expect in your day. And the kids will really thrive if you do that.
Even if it's just like a touchstone, like if you have 2 or 3 things that like, this is our touchstone, we're always going to come back to this. I think that that's helpful.
Exactly. And they know what to expect. The other piece is setting limits, kind of, building off of what I was just sharing about. For those of us who have some work schedules that have changed, and once upon a time, it used to be that we went to work at from 8 to 5, let's just say. And I know that schedules totally vary. And we knew what times our kids were going to be in school and all of those things. Now we are losing that concept of work life, home life, right? And so you don't get to like turn off your computer at 5 o'clock, shed your day during your drive home, right? Instead it's a walk like 5 steps from your home office that you've created to the kitchen or whatever. That doesn't give you a lot of time to shed your day and switch gears. And so what I have found for myself and a lot of people that I know and work with is that those two things are getting very convoluted. And so what that looks like is I'm playing cards at night with my kids, like playing a card game, and I'm checking my email at 7 or 8 at night, right? And that is not good for any of us. That's not good for your kids because you're not present with them. That's not good for you because you're not giving your brain and your nervous system time to relax and unwind so that you can go be productive the next day. So I really encourage all of you to set boundaries and set limits for yourself of this is the beginning of my workday, this is the end of my workday. This is when I do, some stuff for myself for self-care. This is when I do some stuff for my family, for connection time. I think that's really, really important. Another piece is family check-ins. And my kids love this. So here's the benefit / detriment of having a mom that's a therapist, okay? But I love it, and my kids do too. I think they do.
They'll admit it.
They'll admit it, and sometimes they do. They actually, I will tell you, if I forget about it, they will ask for this. So one of the things that we do when we do sit down, like at the dinner table, which is not always, that's not always happening in Megan's house. But when we do sit down and do that, we do a check-in, something like we kind of do in groups sometimes. And so we go around, myself included, and we just share the high point and the low point of our day. That's it. And it gives us it's a great way to sort of start a conversation, to check in with yourself and the kids and be relational. And these are things I think when we get swept up in the day, like, I don't know about you, but I have a checklist running throughout my whole day. And like the fastest part of it is when I finish the workday and I know that I've got like 5 things to do before I can relax, homework, laundry, dinner, dishes, feed the dog, get the mail, pay the bill, all of those kind of things that are going on. And so I think this really makes me be mindful and be present with my kids, which leads to another thing. Oh, and by the way, the things you learn about your kids when you're actually present and asking them to do a high point and low point every day is fantastic. It's just fantastic. So I encourage you guys to try that out and see what you learn. Even if you've got teenagers that are like, I don't wanna, Nothing. It all sucks.
Nothing was good.
So can you tell me a little bit more about that, Johnny? Torture them with it, because here's the thing. I do want to share one more piece of that. Even if they don't give you the answers that you're looking for, or they say things that like kind of make you want to like scream and regret asking them another thing in their entire lives. Like, even if you know that sensation and that comes up, you asking the question is showing them that you care. It's telling them, I'm here, I see you, I'm here, I support you, I love you, I care. And that makes a difference whether they will admit it or not. It 100% does. So I want you guys to remember that, because I've got teenagers and a 20-year-old. I've been there. So that leads into another thing. This is something a client gave me like 10 years ago. And it's the simplest thing. It's so simple. It's not always the easiest thing to remember to do, but I love it. And I can guarantee it will make a difference in your relationship with your child if you do this. I call it the 3x3 rule. Okay. And so what it is looking at the 3 most important times in your kid's day where you get the most benefit, they will get the most benefit of you engaging with them. And that's when they first wake up in the morning, when they first get home from school, and the couple minutes before they go to bed. And so if you don't have a lot of time, which I feel like most of us don't, what I would ask you to do, and I will challenge you to do this for 1 week, every day for 1 week. And by the way, if you like do it 5 out of 7 days, you still get 100% and a gold star. This is not about perfection. This is about like being, just trying some new things and trying to work on getting the relationship you want with your kids. It feels good. So give this a try and just see what feels different in your relationship and how differently your child communicates with you. When they wake up in the morning and you guys are like getting ready or whatever, but take 3 minutes and just greet them to the day. How'd you sleep last night? What are you doing for breakfast? Like, what does your day look like? What is it A schedule or B schedule today? Like, right? Do you have any, tests going on, or like, who are you going to hang out with at lunch, right? Ask them some questions, be engaged. 3 minutes. That's all that it takes. When they get home from school, and if you are a parent that is still working, okay, like at that time at 3 o'clock or whenever they get home, that's okay too. This is the only time I will say that it is absolutely acceptable to send a text message, okay? But engage with your kid when they get home from school. How was school today? What did you do? Like, who'd you hang out with at lunch? Like, did you hear any funny jokes? Like, whatever. I don't care what you ask, just ask questions and be engaged. And then the third piece is after everything is done, the dishes, the million things, and hopefully we did a check-in at dinner, but when they're getting ready to go to bed, instead of, did you do your homework? Did you brush your teeth? Did you take a shower? Those aren't the questions I'm talking about, right? Those are good questions, but those aren't what I'm talking about. It's when we're getting ready for bed and we're having a little bit of intimate communication. So really, how was your day? Like, how are you feeling? It's a good time to dream too, talking about like, are you excited for Christmas break? What are some movies we can watch together, like when we're off, right? What are some things that we want to do? What do we want to do next summer when we go on vacation? It's a good time. It's just a good time to engage and do some dreaming. So 3 minutes, 3 times a day, that is 9 minutes out of a 24-hour period. And I can guarantee you, if you practice that on a regular basis, regardless of what their reaction is, okay? But you practice that on a regular basis, the way you feel about your child and towards your child and the way that they feel about and towards you will change. And then the last thing that I want to talk about and bring up is communication, like age-appropriate communication about the things that are happening in the world today, which is a little bit off of what we were just talking about, off topic, but I don't think so much. So one of the things that I just want to remind everybody of, and this is something that I try to keep in mind for myself too, is that our kids, like, going back to this technology piece, our kids are exposed to so much more than we were when we were kids. I mean, so much more. And, I remember I'm a child of I don't want to talk about it. I have a birthday coming up. So, but that I haven't accepted yet. But in my day and age, okay, I was a teenager when we got the internet. Well, close to it. I was a preteen when we got the internet. So the only thing we really saw was, the stuff on TV and, some ads here and there. So I want us to remember that our kids are being bombarded with lots of stuff about what's going on right now. And I think it took me a minute in my own fear to realize how scared my children were, because they handled it differently than I did, and it came out sometimes sideways. And so You know, they're hearing about it from kids at school. They're hearing about it from, you know, the internet and Snapchat and Instagram and, you know, all of those things. And they're
TikTok.
And TikTok. I don't even know what that is, by the way, but that's okay.
You don't want to know.
I don't want to know. Maybe you need to educate me someday, but I don't want to know. But from school and their teachers and, you know, all of these things. So they're walking around being like, you know, what's going to happen to us? Are we going to be okay? What if the vaccine's not safe? What if we have to, oh, my kids right now, what if we have to like not come back after break at all? What if I never see my friends again? When is the next time that I can actually have another human besides my family in my house, right? Like all of those kind of things. Is grandma going to be okay because she's compromised? Like they have a ton of questions. And here's the problem. We don't actually have answers for a lot of that, right? We can't tell them, you know, A plus B equals C. You know, this is like an algebraic, I'm going back to math again. Oh my gosh.
You think that you like math.
I don't like math. I have trauma. So, but we're figuring it out. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. Laugh break.
Yeah.
So my point in bringing this up is I think it's really important that we don't shy away from talking to our kids about all of this. And also that we don't assume that they already know. You know, because I feel like it's talked about so much. I can't tell you how many times I've said, I never want to talk about COVID again. Like, I'm so sick of talking and hearing about COVID, you know, but here's the thing. I need to talk about that with my kids. I need to ask them if they have questions or if they have concerns. And I need to share with them about the situation in an age-appropriate way. You know, I'm not going to talk to a 5-year-old about the riots that happened in downtown Phoenix. Like, that's really not good dinner conversation, you know, but if my 16-year-old comes home and says, I'm really afraid because like, I don't know, Uncle John works for Phoenix Fire Department in downtown Phoenix. And like, I hear there's these riots going on, like what is going on? You know, I need to have a conversation with them about that. So talk about it, age appropriateness, and really we don't need to have an answer other than to them, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. I am going to take care of you. That's it. That's it. They just really need that reassurance because even if they're 16, even if they're 18, even if they're 40, they still need to hear some reassurance that we're going to be okay.
So the question that we get asked a lot is, I find it really interesting because people go, they say to me, how do I know if I need to get more help? And I find that interesting because for me, the answer is if you're asking yourself, should I? The answer is always yes.
And the same goes for your kids.
Same goes for your kids. If you're like, should I be worried? Maybe the answer is not yes, you should be worried, but the answer is, go ahead and reach out. And I know that things look different right now, but therapy is in full force. Not everybody is in person. Some people are virtual. That's not everybody's preference. That's totally understandable. But call your insurance, find out who takes it, call the local counseling, call transitions counseling, like
call Miko Price.
Call Miko Price. She knows how to get us. But if you're asking yourself, do I? The answer is yes. And when we were chatting before we hopped on, and I don't want to step on your toes because I think that you have a thing about this too. Megan said, it was very poignant. She said, the worst that's going to happen if you reach out is that you get some support. That's it. That's the worst that's going to happen. So if you're asking yourself the question, do I need a little bit more support? The answer is yes.
One of the things Jessica pointed out when we were talking, I like how we're switching, but one of the things she pointed out that I thought was so good is that, you know, a lot of times our kids, especially in certain age groups, are not going to share with us things that they might share with a counselor. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, what's beautiful about having a counselor to work with your children and you really is it's a very unbiased, you know, point of view and a person and a space that can hold things for you and your kids. And so, you know, if you're in a state of stress and you already have a lot of things on your plate and your kiddo knows that, which most of the time they do, they can feel it, they can sense it, they may not want to further burden you. They may not, this is the big one, feel like you understand because they're your parent, you're their parent. I mean, you're not a human, right? So, right. And, you know, they might ground you for, you know, admitting that you are not doing so well in math or take away your phone or, you know, those kind of things. So if you feel like you may need it, if you think that your child may need it, it does not hurt to reach out for some support. Okay.
Let's stop sharing. See what we've won in the chat.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, goodness.
Here we go. All right. Okay. So go ahead.
Stop recording just in case people want to.
Okay.
That way that's not